Welcome to today's session. We're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to Silvon Stratum. We're going to take a look at version 7.5 today, which is the latest version that we have available for Stratum. And we're going to be talking about some of the key enhancements that have been released for this version, such as the latest and the newest Stratum Glossary. We're going to talk about that along with attribute filters and sorts. We're going to talk about this concept of using Stratum KPI functions. There's a new way to drill down by measure. We'll obviously discuss a little bit of a viewer facelift and other miscellaneous items as well. So that's what we're talking about today. This is the Stratum Data Hub, and today's session will be concentrating mostly on the outbound side of things, primarily using the web-based viewer, which is the Stratum web-based interface that we actually used to call it viewer. I guess you could still call it viewer, but it's kind of morphed into Stratum. And that's what we'll be concentrating on today. But essentially, this is just a snapshot of what the Data Hub looks like, the complete solution that Stratum provides for both getting data in and out of the Data Hub with all of its different application areas. So if you'd like to talk more about that, certainly contact me, and you'll have my contact information at the end of the session. So what is this glossary, this Stratum Glossary thing? Well, essentially it provides additional information about each object within your Stratum data model. Users can actually run views and reports within the interface, and they'll be able to click in once they turn on the glossary. It's a simple toggle. They'll be able to click in on different areas and different objects within the view to get more information about what that thing is. So what, for instance, what does actual sales mean? What does net sales or gross sales? What does that mean? Is that net of returns? Does it include credit memos and returns, or is this gross sales? Which, again, this will provide your enterprise a way to describe your environment in more detail, and gives you a utility in which you can use to do that. And of course, you'll need to have admin access or viewer admin access to be able to do that. So not every user can go in and change the descriptions that you set up. So that's essentially what this glossary does. It really kind of allows you to describe your environment, and it really gives you an engine to do that within the Stratum interface. Looking at it from a visual standpoint, we can see we're inside a view here, and with the toggle and with the glossary turned on, we can see that we've got all the different areas that we can click in on with the informational buttons, icons. So if I wanted to know what actual sales means, I can click in on that little icon there, and it will open up, or for budget for that matter, it'll then open up the glossary and give me a description of the glossary or the measure itself for budget amount frozen as of January the 15th. So that's something that was input by an administrator that gives you an idea of when the last time the budget was updated. Okay, which is good information to have. That's what you want to know. Users are going to ask, constantly asking this type of information. And now they've got a medium in which they can click in on and get that type of information. And the same thing goes for all the different products. As you can see, I can click in on the informational button for a given product. It looks like they clicked in on the top one. And then I can get more information about the product level. This is product. The source of the data is in Dynamics. The attributes are from multiple source. So that's something that was written by somebody, so that at least you know what this level represents. In addition to that, all the different attributes are now available for visual purposes, and then the users can then kind of scroll through that information as needed. So again, another more elegant way to represent the different attributes for a given product. The glossary itself is can be accessed in its entirety in the upper right-hand menu. We call it the hamburger menu. If you click in on that, you'll see a Stratum Glossary option. And again, this is 7.5 only. And that takes you into the actual, the root level of the glossary, the home page, if you will. And even that has a description. Somebody typed this viewer connector version in pre-test environment that was typed in by somebody last time the Stratum Cube was updated. So you'll get good information even at the global level, at the home level, about the environment. And you can dive into some of that, and then you can dive into the dimensions and the measure groups from this area as well. There's an index that you can click in on, and you can start searching on things. I'll show you in a demo, but you can expand that and get to certain areas of the glossary very quickly. Okay, well that's enough about that. We'll revisit the glossary in the demo. Let's move on to attribute filter. So now we've got an easier way to filter on attributes. That's something that's been users have requested throughout the years to provide an easier way to filter on an attribute for a given level. You could filter on, for instance, a customer description that contains the word Acme Group. You can filter on average sale price greater than 100. So this is something now that's available in the latest version. If we take a look at that, we can see that we've got some filters here on the different attributes that are available within this particular view. Product, along with its description, it only contains cherries. So, obviously a filter has been created for that, just for cherry items. Only 8 items and anything greater than a current list price of 100. So this is something that uh, was way more difficult to do in the previous versions. Is now just a matter of going in and selecting and defining these filters as needed. So that's been enhanced and made it much easier for you to provide these filters at the different attributes for a given level. This is a really good example of that at the product level, where you want a combination of filters to give you a set of products that you want to analyze based on the attributes that you have within Stratum. Here, we can see that if we want to do a filter for the list price greater than 100, pretty simple to set up, as you can see. Similar to a filter on a measure. It's very similar to that in terms of how you would set that up. Another nifty thing that they've added here is for certain attributes you can set up whether it should be displayed as a data type of a number or text. So typically, for instance, list price is going to always be a number. It's a dollar figure, and you could have some decimals in there, but still it's a number. So it would be advantageous for you to set that up and define that as a numeric field. And so this concept did not exist before 7.5. So you would get, if you tried to do a sort on an attribute, you would get sketchy results. And so you would normally have to copy that into or represent that in a calculated column, which would add more complexity to it for the user to set that up. So you can do this at the view level if you wanted to set this attribute up as a number just for that particular view. Um, it can also be set up at a global level so that users don't necessarily have to do it every time they want to set that up as a numeric field. So again, sorting, filtering on the attributes are now available and much easier to define. Okay, so moving on to the KPI enhancements. So now we've got a couple of things that we've added, such as the count member function. So if you wanted to see, for instance, a count of products by customer, This is something that you would typically have to set up as a calculated column and um, write a rather sophisticated calculation to accomplish that, which was part of our online help, but nevertheless, it was pretty complicated. So now you can use this function, which simplifies the syntax and makes it much easier for users to define it. And then, not to mention, it's been optimized for performance so that um, again, users don't have to worry about additional syntax to make sure that it doesn't grind the server to a halt. So we'll take a look at that. And then you can easily create a variety of different KPI measurements. So, and these include things like averaging, max and mins, standard deviation. These things are available. Uh, I see averaging and min and max being used quite a bit. So, much easier way to set up these types of KPIs and without having to get into rather lengthy syntax to define it in a calculated column. So here we can see a couple of things. We can see sales amount through for a range of months, January through September. So that's the sum amount. Here we've got the minimum amount set up for the same time range. Here we've got the maximum amount set up for that given time range. So that number is the maximum number for that given sold to for that time range for any given month. So that was obviously a good month. The average being 138 million. So see that for all the months for January through September. Well, these guys are doing gangbuster business, 1.2 billion. So this is a really big customer, a really big client. But so now you can set all this up, and here's a product count, by the way. So you can set up and see. So we can see that Wilder Foods buys 3,088 products, and so on and so forth. I'll show you how to set these up in the demo, so you know where to go and how to do it. Other things that were added, you can now define drill downs by measure, so you can drill to another view depending on the column of data that you click in on. So you can take them to and that's that's key. So if they want to click in on an open order column, I would expect you to take them somewhere related to open orders. Similarly, certainly you could take them anywhere you want, but there'd be probably a logical path that you would want to take them down. So that's we had drill to another view available, but this is not something that you can set up for specific columns. And then also a viewer facelift has been done, updated the look of the pop-up windows just to make it more modern. We updated support for Windows Server and SQL Server 2022. There's been a relationship filter enhancement, and we've made our executable names for our programs unique instead of just setup.exe. So now you know exactly what the file, that setup file represents. Other things, we could see that if you are moving from a prior version of 7.2, you would actually have to upgrade to 7.2 first. So that's a flagship release that needs to be upgraded to 7.2. And then from there, you can then upgrade to 7.5. So if you're prior to 7.2, all we're saying is that you have to go to upgrade to 7.2 and then go on and do a full process once you're upgraded to 7.2. And then you can go on and upgrade to 7.5 without doing a full process. That is me, Adam Kurtz. You can reach me at that email or phone number. There's our general phone number and informational email. Check out our website, silvon.com. customernet.silvon.com is our customer site. So if you're a customer of ours, that's where you're going to find product announcements. The forum can be found there as well, or you can go directly to the forum where other customers and clients can interact and discuss the product. And then finally, our YouTube channel down on the bottom. Make sure you check that out because that's where the recording of this session will end up on. Okay, without further ado, we'll get into a demo of what we just discussed. So here's the latest version of 7.5. Here's that hamburger menu I was talking about. And there's that Stratum Glossary. So if we step right into that, we can see that the glossary in its full glory is available to us. The index is something that you can click in on, and if there's something that you're looking for in particular that you want to make a comment on or do additional maintenance on, then you can go in and click in on the measure that you want to maintain, and then you've got full reign about the description for actual sales amount, which is reflects the value of sales bucket by the invoice date. So if I wanted maybe to change that or add more to that, I can click in on that on the little pencil or the edit icon. And this allows me to go in and make some additional changes. Maybe I want to put in net of returns, so that they know that credits are considered. And I can go ahead and save that away. And then that becomes part of the actual description for that measure. We scroll to the right here, we can see that that's now available. If I wanted to just hone in on that particular, go back in on that, we can see that that's been saved. So this is the menu that administrators can use to kind of manage the glossary, right? So if there's something in particular that they're looking for, maybe the product level. So instead of a measure, maybe I'm looking to go to product and describe what product should be, what it should say. It's a dimension. This is the description for product. That's the default, and that's not very helpful. So this is something that you can put in, SKU / product represents the finished good from our manufacturing sites. Whatever you think would answer questions about what you think users would say or question about. What does this mean? What does product mean? Is this the finished good? Is this the SKUs that we sell? Because you might have, raw material, another level that you can go to, or maybe you have a kits section where you can, so now instead of obviously the generic description, I've got something that is at least a little bit more helpful than this is the description for product, right? So again, this is something that I see the administrators using to kind of define, the environment, the glossary itself. And it's a fair amount of work. I'm not gonna lie. This is something that is going to take some effort to set up. But I think that at the end of the day, once you have some of this set up, that it will definitely be beneficial to the users. And certainly and down the road, obviously they'll be able to get this information instead of bothering you about it. So how does it look when we run the view? For instance, if I were to run a view and to turn on the glossary, we can see that the glossary over here can be turned on. There's a more info button. So if I just simply toggle that, it then allows me to gain access to the different informational icons that, if I want to click in on actual sales amount, here we can see the description in its full glory. So unlike the glossary, this is something that the users are going to see. And so this is obviously much more, the presentation is a lot better. I can drag and drop this over if I want. And then again, if I were an administrator, I can then step into this and add more information to the description if I want to. So a regular user obviously would not be able to do that, but Um, I certainly, being an administrator, I can, if I want to add more verbiage to this, I could do that. Here I can turn on more details for this measure, and it gives me the, is this measure, what is it? Obviously it's a measure. Is it available in viewer? Yes. How's the data controlled by? It's coming from ERP or corporate. Is it planning enabled? Yes. Is it planning allowed? Yes. So typically that would say no. This is a demo environment, so sometimes we like to play with the numbers. So our sales numbers are planning enabled, but normally that would say no. You would have sales locked down. Obviously, you don't want people going in and changing the sales numbers. So that's sales. What does this calculation mean? I mean, it just goes on, right? I can go into anything basically and get a description for it. So here I can see sales percent change. This is where it really shines, I think, for some of the calculations. What is this calculation doing? It's a percent change. Great. I can go in and read the math, but this again gives you much more different elaborate ways to really describe these different calculations, these different things within your view. And then our level for product brand, a way to group products or items with similar characteristics derived from the item master file in the ERP. So again, okay, great. Now I know how we're getting this information. And if you want to specify the table or the actual item master table and the field in which you're referencing that, great. Sometimes users want to see that. If I go into, like, for instance, if I change this over to product, so now we're looking at all of our products, and then I can click in on our peaches halves over here. If I want to click in on that, so now I can describe um, the product itself. Of course, you're not going to describe every product uniquely, but what it does provide is a nifty way to, well, first of all, this is the generic term for product, so that's something that would probably just stay generic. But it's a great way to access all the attributes that you have for product as well. Instead of bringing them into the view itself, you can, if you just want to eyeball a data point or two or three or four, this would be a great way to be able to do that. Okay. So, and then if I want to just turn that off, I can just click that toggle again, and now I'm back to just vanilla. I don't have those different icons, blaring at me anymore. Okay. So that's the glossary, and that's something that we feel is going to really help you take your environment to the next level in terms of being able to define it and have the different areas described. Okay, moving on. Let's move on to the KPIs and the calculations that we have available. Um, for instance, here I can see that I've got a rolling scenario for my months. It looks like 3 months. So I've got 3 month sales this year versus last, and that's the sum. So if I were to go into properties for that measure, I can see that this is the display value is defined as a sum. So now and this is new, so if I were to pull that down, I can see that, I've got different ways to display this data. Maybe if I wanted to see the minimum amount for those 3 months, I can go ahead and change that on the fly, and this changes my minimum amount or my column to what the minimum month was for that range of time. So we can see that for July through September, this item here, the minimum amount was not bad. We can see the halves were, well, not great. So, but that's all relative, isn't it? It's relative to maybe an average. So, so now I can, really kind of change things around and add more information to this. If I want to add another column of sales, take that same range, right? And I'll add that in. So now I've got the sum amount, right? So if I go into that new column and change that display value to average. So now I've got the minimum amount in which I can change the description and put in min. And then over here, I can change this to average or ADG. Probably would look better if I capitalized it. And I think you know where this is going because now I can kind of compare my min versus my average and seeing where, I'm obviously it's, it gets really interesting. And then here I could see probably better yet would be to change that back to sum. So here's my sum, here's my average, and I can see areas where I'm close to average, I'm blowing away average. Um, again, I can adjust my description, take instead of that, I can put in sum. Yeah, I'm just not typing well today. But see, you can kind of really get this stuff done very quickly now. Whereas with average, I'd be screwing around with the syntax. I'd be knee deep in it right now, as a matter of fact. And so this really allows me to get these different ways of looking at the data, um, and gives me more perspective. It gives me a bit more context in terms of how I'm performing, what my averages are. And then if I wanted to lay out each month, certainly I could add in more columns and lay those out as well and get the full, spectrum of what all the data represents. Maybe if I want to add in a account of a product, maybe if I take this to sold to instead of product level, and maybe if I add in another calculation, and here's where my count is going to be added in. So now I've got some new functions that are under the Stratum viewer functions, the count member function. So here we could see that if we want to count our products for the sales for that sum amount, I can do that. Maybe if I want to format that as a number, and then we'll name it product count or SKU count. Right. So now I've got a nifty little count there that allows me to see how many unique products that I'm selling by customer sold to. And if I were to drill that to product, I should see 64 rows. Indeed, there they are. And then that fourth row is the grand total row. So that's 63. And I can sort this to see which ones are, these guys need to buy more product, don't they? So here's what they're selling. And I can figure out what they're not selling pretty quickly there too, as you can see. Right. And then finally, I bring in an attribute. And this typically works better at product level because we've got more attributes. So here I'll change that to product. I'll bring in our current list price. So now we have an attribute in the mix. So let me go to properties on that and I'll check the property, and it's already at number. So that's good. And that means it's been changed at the global level to always be a number, which is something that you definitely want. And this allows me to right click it now and do a sort in descending fashion, which will give me accurate results now that it's being treated like a number. Or maybe I want to filter this um, and have it greater than or equal to 100, right? So that's new, right? So you couldn't really accomplish this. You could, but it would be more difficult. You would have to introduce calculations, and that way you could change the textual field to a numeric field so that it would actually sort and filter properly. Well, that's gone now, right? Now we have an easier way. We can go directly into the attribute column, provide our sorts, provide our filters without having to worry about it. And especially if you set this up properly, go through all your attributes to make sure that the ones that are truly numeric are set that way, then your users will always be in good shape. So just something to think about in terms of that. But those are some of the things that are available in 7.5. Um, Definitely go on to our customer net site. We've got a what's new document you can read up on about this, and it will give you more information about it, and then you can download it. And what's nice is that if you're not close to 7.5, it'll also give you more information about 7.4, 7.3, and some of the major release enhancements that were part of those releases as well.